It often starts quietly. You don't remember the exact moment it began, only that somewhere between childhood and now, you learned that peace was something you had to earn, that affection was conditional, that love was a reward for good behavior, not something you deserved just for being you. Maybe it was the look your father gave you when you spoke out of turn, or the silence your mother used when you disappointed her. You didn't understand the rules, only the consequences. Every time you did something that upset them, a frown, a sigh, a cold shoulder, you felt something sink deep inside your chest. You promised yourself, never again. That's where people-pleasing begins. It's a language we learn before we even understand words. Not from kindness, not from generosity, but from survival. When your safety, your belonging, and your sense of worth are tied to how happy you make others, you grow up believing that harmony is your responsibility. You think your job is to fix the mood, to fill the silence, to make everything okay, even when it's not. And that's the heartbreaking truth. People-pleasing often starts as a child's strategy to stay loved. Most people think people-pleasers are just nice, overly generous, maybe too empathetic. But that's not what's really happening. Deep down, people-pleasers are afraid that if they say no, they'll lose love. Afraid that if they disappoint someone, they'll be abandoned. So they bend themselves into shapes that don't even look like them anymore. They smile when they're angry. They agree when they're exhausted. They apologize for things they didn't do. And every time they do it, they move further away from themselves. You might not realize it, but your nervous system remembers those early lessons. Every scolding that taught you to stay quiet. Every argument that taught you that emotions are dangerous. Every unspoken rule that told you to be easy, calm, and compliant. Those weren't just moments, they were blueprints. The human brain develops by association. When you're young, your brain wires safety with whatever keeps you from being punished or rejected. So if being good meant staying quiet, that's what you did. If being useful meant putting everyone's needs before yours, that's who you became. And over time, your sense of self becomes a reflection of everyone else's expectations. That's what people-pleasing really is. Not a flaw, but a coping mechanism that outlived its environment. But here's the problem. When you grow up, that mechanism doesn't stop running. Even though you're not that powerless child anymore, your body doesn't know that. It still reacts like you'll be punished if someone's upset. It still floods with anxiety when you imagine someone being disappointed in you. And so, you keep performing, keep smiling, keep agreeing, because somewhere deep down, you still believe your safety depends on it. Think about how often you say yes when you mean no. How often you agree just to avoid tension. How often you overthink what someone might think of you, replaying conversations in your head, scanning for the moment where you might have said something wrong. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. For many people, it starts with emotionally unavailable parents. Parents who are unpredictable, inconsistent, or emotionally distant. One day they're loving, the next day cold. One moment they're proud of you, the next they're disappointed. So you learn to monitor their moods like a radar, scanning for emotional storms before they arrive. You start shaping your behavior around their reactions. You study every tone, every sigh, every facial expression, because that's how you survive in that house. And slowly, you become someone else. Someone quieter, someone agreeable, someone who doesn't cause trouble. You don't even realize it's happening. You just learn that your emotions are inconvenient, that your needs are too much, that your boundaries make people pull away. So you bury them. You smile instead. You fix things. You make jokes. You become the peacekeeper, the one everyone loves because you never make them uncomfortable. But inside, you're tired, because you can only hold your breath for so long before it starts to hurt. The saddest part? Many people-pleasers mistake their exhaustion for kindness. They say, I just care too much, or I don't like conflict. But beneath that is fear. The fear that if you stop giving, no one will stay. Psychologists call it fawning, a trauma response alongside fight, flight, and freeze. When faced with threat or disapproval, Instead of defending yourself or running away, you appease. You say whatever keeps the peace. You try to make others happy so that you don't feel unsafe. It's not that you want to betray yourself. It's that your body doesn't know any other way. And over time, this habit bleeds into everything. Your work, your relationships, even your friendships. You become the reliable one, the one everyone goes to, the one who fixes everything but themselves. You think if you're good enough, calm enough, accommodating enough, people will finally see your worth. But instead, they start expecting it. They stop seeing it as kindness and start seeing it as your role. You become invisible, hidden behind your own politeness. But here's what most people don't realize. Being a people pleaser doesn't actually make people love you. It just makes them comfortable. And there's a difference. Comfort is temporary. Love is unconditional. When you live your life trying to be what everyone needs, you rob them of the chance to love who you actually are. Because how can they love you when you never show them? That's why so many people pleasers feel lonely, even when they're surrounded by people. They give and give, hoping that one day someone will give back. But love born from compliance isn't love. It's control in disguise. So what can you do? First, you have to unlearn what your childhood taught you. That's not easy. It means confronting the uncomfortable truth that maybe your parents weren't always right about what love looks like. Maybe their version of good was really just quiet. Maybe their version of respect was really obedience. See, our parents don't always mean to hurt us. Many of them were doing the best they could with what they knew. But pain doesn't disappear just because it was unintentional. You can forgive them and still acknowledge what it did to you. Because pretending it didn't matter is how people-pleasing survives. Every time you silence yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you repeat the story your childhood wrote for you. You tell yourself, my needs don't matter. My truth isn't welcome. My peace doesn't belong to me. But what if you started writing a different story? What if you stopped apologizing for existing the way you do? The truth is, saying no isn't cruel. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Disappointing people isn't a failure. It's honesty. It's growth. It's the process of becoming real again. Because here's the secret no one tells you. You don't have to earn love by pleasing people. You earn love by being authentic. The more you chase approval, the more it runs away. But the moment you stop performing, when you finally let people see your flaws, your limits, your truth, that's when real connection begins. Of course, that's terrifying. If your whole life has been built on keeping people happy, being authentic feels dangerous. It feels like walking into a storm without an umbrella. You'll want to run back to old habits. You'll want to apologize for being yourself. But remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing it anyway. Every time you say no and survive, your nervous system learns that you're safe. Every time you share a truth and someone stays, you prove your brain wrong. You rewire what love means. And little by little, you start to realize that love isn't something you have to win. It's something you can build with honesty, with respect, with boundaries. It's not your job to keep everyone happy. It's your job to be whole. But the healing process doesn't start with saying no to others. It starts with saying yes to yourself. Yes to rest. Yes to honesty. Yes to imperfection. Yes to your own peace. Because when you stop trying to fix everyone else's emotions, you finally have space to feel your own. And that's where you meet yourself again. Beneath the masks, beneath the compliance, beneath the years of pretending everything's fine. You meet the version of you that existed before fear. The one who didn't need to perform. The one who simply was. That's the version of you that deserves to lead now. But here's something powerful. People-pleasing doesn't mean you're broken. It means you were wise enough to survive something that required self-erasure. It means you learned empathy in chaos, softness in noise. You became emotionally intelligent because you had to read people to stay safe. That sensitivity isn't your weakness. It's your superpower. The goal isn't to kill your kindness. It's to free it from fear. True kindness isn't about keeping peace at your expense. It's about showing up as your full self, even when it might make others uncomfortable. It's about giving, not out of fear of losing love, but out of the abundance of already having it. And that shift changes everything. You begin to notice the difference between connection and compliance. You begin to feel the quiet strength of a well-placed boundary. You begin to realize that saying no isn't rejection, it's direction. It points you back to what actually matters. Healing from people-pleasing is like teaching your body a new language, one where safety comes from truth, not approval. It's awkward at first, you'll stumble, you'll over-explain, you'll feel guilt for setting even the smallest boundaries. But keep going. Every uncomfortable no builds the foundation of a more authentic yes. Because the real question isn't, how can I make them like me? It's, can I like myself when they don't? And when you can answer yes to that, you're free. Part 2 continues seamlessly from here, diving into how childhood conditioning shapes adult relationships and how to finally break free from the cycle of emotional dependency and reclaim your identity. The hardest part about healing from people-pleasing isn't setting boundaries. It's facing the silence that follows, because when you've spent your entire life being what others need, the moment you stop, people notice. They pull away. They question. Some even get angry, and it hurts, because you thought that love was mutual. You thought it was unconditional, but in reality, it was dependent on your compliance. That's the moment most people-pleasers relapse. The guilt feels unbearable. The fear returns. You start to think, maybe I am being selfish. But you're not. You're just not feeding a system that survived on your self-erasure anymore. You're not broken for wanting to be seen. You're just used to being invisible. And that's why the first stage of healing is grief. Grieving the love you never truly received. Grieving the childhood where you had to earn peace. Grieving the relationships that only survived because you carried them. Because to stop people-pleasing, you have to admit something painful. You were trained to believe your needs were a burden. That belief doesn't vanish overnight. It lingers in small moments, in how you apologize when you haven't done anything wrong, in how you downplay your achievements so you don't make anyone uncomfortable, in how you over-explain when you simply mean no. These habits feel harmless, but they're symptoms of a deep misunderstanding about love and worth. You learn that love is something you buy with good behavior, that safety is something you earn by never being inconvenient. So you became a master of adaptation, a shapeshifter who could blend into anyone's expectations. But when you always adapt, you forget who you were before you started bending. That's why people-pleasers often feel lost when asked simple questions like, what do you want? Or, what do you need? Because for years, the answer was never about you. It was about whoever was standing in front of you. You became fluent in everyone else's emotions except your own. And that's not your fault. See, when you were growing up, your parents were your entire world. You depended on them for everything: food, shelter, affection, safety. So if love felt inconsistent or conditional, your brain didn't question them. It questioned you. Children don't think, my parents are emotionally unavailable. They think, I must not be good enough. And so begins the lifelong project of proving your worth. You try to be the perfect student, the perfect friend, the perfect partner. You think if you can just do everything right, no one will ever leave. But what you're really trying to fix is an old wound. The one that whispers, you're only lovable when you're useful. That wound becomes the foundation of your identity. You start to equate peace with control. You become hyper-aware of other people's moods because unpredictability once felt like danger. You can sense tension before it's spoken. You step in to smooth it over before anyone asks you to. You call it empathy, but deep down, it's vigilance. It's your nervous system saying, if I can keep everyone happy, I'll stay safe. But safety built on suppression isn't safety. It's self-abandonment. And that's why people-pleasers often feel anxious even when nothing's wrong. The body doesn't trust stillness because peace feels unfamiliar. Your brain keeps searching for signs of rejection, for disapproval, for the next emotional storm, because chaos, as painful as it was, feels like home. It's a strange paradox. You crave love, but you fear it at the same time. Because love, real love, requires honesty. It requires boundaries. It requires you to show up fully as yourself. Something you've been taught is dangerous. So even when someone tries to love you for who you are, you instinctively pull back, afraid that if they see too much, they'll leave. So you keep performing, you keep pleasing, you keep pretending, and slowly your relationships start to feel hollow. Not because others don't care, but because you're not actually in them, only the version of you they expect. That's the hidden cost of people-pleasing. You lose connection not just with others, but with yourself. And without that connection, life starts to feel flat. You might find yourself surrounded by people, but none of them truly see you. You might be praised for being so understanding, so selfless, so kind, but deep down, you feel unseen, unheard, unloved. Because how can anyone love the real you if the real you is never allowed to exist? So how do you begin to change something so deeply wired? You start by learning the difference between kindness and compliance. Kindness comes from choice. Compliance comes from fear. When you act out of kindness, it nourishes you. You feel expansive, grounded, at peace. But when you act out of fear, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being misunderstood, it drains you. You leave the conversation feeling smaller. That's the moment you need to pause and ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid not to? That question can change your life. It helps you recognize where you've been giving your power away, not out of love, but out of fear of losing it. And once you start noticing that pattern, you can begin to rewrite it. Healing from people-pleasing doesn't mean becoming cold or selfish. It means creating balance. It means realizing that your emotions matter too, that your comfort, your time, your peace, all deserve the same respect you give to others. You can care deeply and still have boundaries. You can be kind and still say no. You can love people without carrying the weight of their happiness. But here's the tricky part. When you first start setting boundaries, it won't feel empowering. It'll feel wrong. It'll feel like you're breaking the rules. That's because your body associates boundaries with rejection. But that's just the old story replaying. Keep practicing anyway. Every no you say teaches your body that honesty doesn't destroy connection. It defines it. You'll notice that some relationships fade. That's okay. They were built on conditions that your new self can't sustain. But others, the ones that survive your honesty, those are the ones worth keeping because they're built on truth, not performance. Over time, you'll start to notice something beautiful. Peace no longer feels empty. Stillness no longer feels dangerous. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop needing everyone to like you. You start liking yourself instead. And that's when everything changes. See, people-pleasing was never about other people. It was about your inner child trying to feel safe. So the real work isn't convincing others to love you differently. It's learning how to love yourself in the way you always needed. That means reparenting yourself. It means becoming the adult that younger you needed. Someone who says, you don't have to earn love. You already are it. You can start small. The next time you feel guilt for saying no, remind yourself, this discomfort is growth. The next time someone is upset with your boundary, remember, their reaction doesn't define your worth. The next time you catch yourself over-explaining, stop mid-sentence and take a breath. You don't owe the world justification for existing. That's how you slowly reclaim your life, one moment of self-honesty at a time. And here's what you'll eventually realize. Peace isn't found in keeping everyone happy. Peace is found in being authentic, even when that authenticity causes waves. You weren't born to be agreeable. You were born to be whole. Your parents might have taught you to hide your feelings to avoid conflict. They might have made you believe that good children don't talk back, that silence is strength, that self-sacrifice is love. But you're not a child anymore. You're allowed to choose differently now. You can choose honesty over harmony, truth over approval, love over fear, because the moment you stop trying to be who they needed, you finally become who you were meant to be. And something miraculous happens when you do. The right people start finding you. The ones who love you not for how easy you are, but for how real you are. The ones who don't need you to shrink to make them comfortable. The ones who can handle your truth, your depth, your boundaries. That's what real love looks like. It's not fragile. It doesn't require pretending. It grows in the soil of mutual respect. But to experience it, you have to let the old version of love die, the one you were taught as a child. You have to release the need to be liked by everyone. You have to accept that not everyone will understand your change. Some will call you distant, some will call you cold, but the truth is, you're finally becoming whole. Because you can't build real connection on self-abandonment. You have to show up as yourself, even when it feels risky, and in that process, you'll realize something profound. The peace you were always trying to create outside of you was waiting inside you all along. You just needed to stop betraying yourself to find it. So, when you feel that familiar urge to fix everything, to please everyone, to smooth over every rough edge, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what does my truth need right now? Because that voice, the quiet one that's been buried under years of compliance, that's the voice of your freedom. You don't need to silence it anymore. You don't need to apologize for it. You just need to listen, and maybe, for the first time, believe it. Because your worth was never measured by how much peace you keep for others. It's measured by how much truth you can hold within yourself. So stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to be easy. Start trying to be real. You deserve relationships that don't require performance. You deserve peace that doesn't depend on silence. You deserve to exist without shrinking. Because love in its purest form doesn't demand that you disappear. It asks you to return, fully, honestly, unapologetically, to yourself. And that's the moment you stop being a people pleaser and start being a person again.